All right, guys, welcome back to the stream. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome if you're new. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. And thank you so much for waiting patiently for the intro to finish up there. I hope everybody is doing well today. Apologies for not having our regular Sunday stream yesterday. I was a bit preoccupied. So I know things are a little bit out of whack here, where it's very rare that I ever miss a Sunday stream. So I'm sure some people are like, "Whoa, what's going on there?" Not a big deal. I don't anticipate that happening again anytime soon anyway. So yeah, we are back here today. It's Monday. I mean, not technically the start of a new week, but Monday always feels like the start of a new week, at least to me. I don't know if you guys agree with that or not. A lot of people can't stand Mondays. Also interesting, July 1st. July 1st, the first of a month, landing on a Monday. I don't know. Sometimes for me, it feels kind of like, this is a good opportunity. Kind of like a fresh start. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. But, all right. So, yeah, we have some different topics to go over and talk about today. PlayStation-related topics. I have, let me count, 1, 2, 3, 4. I have about 4 distinct PlayStation topics to talk about, and there's a 5th bonus topic here that we might be able to get to. We should be able to. It's not a whole lot of PlayStation news right now, but one of the topics that we are going to go over that I promised we would go over, and I didn't go over it on Thursday when they actually happened. I was supposed to do it yesterday on Sunday, but the Concord Previews. Okay, I didn't actually talk about this. I talked about it a little bit in a video, but you guys want to have a more in-depth discussion about this, and I do as well. So we're definitely going to talk about that. We're also going to be talking about how there was some news that came out recently. Actually, I think yesterday. I think the news came out yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, that apparently Sony is maybe pulling back with physical media. And there seems to be some confusion because people are assuming that this has to do with Sony's gaming sector, PlayStation, but it actually doesn't. And, some people were kind of panicking a little bit, thinking that Sony's making their way out. They're getting out of physical media. They're going to stop producing physical games, or at least this is the beginning of that. And that is not what this indicates. There does seem to be some confusion. I can understand, though, like based off of the reporting and the information, I can understand why some people would jump to that conclusion. But no, it's not going to be a long topic. We did talk about this very in depth. It's not going to be a long topic. It's basically just going to be kind of correcting some potential misinformation that's out there, so everybody's on the same page. So we'll talk about that as well. We're going to be talking about Housemarque. Housemarque is a studio that I think a lot of PlayStation players are really eager to hear about. What are they working on? What's their next project? Their last project was Returnal. A lot of people loved Returnal. I loved Returnal. And this is one of those studios where, again, I just think people are like, can't wait to see what they're working on. Can't wait to see what's next. We have a little bit of new information about their new game, and we're going to go over that here today and maybe reminisce a little bit about Returnal while we're at it. And then we also have some interesting Mark Cerny backwards compatibility news. Mark Cerny is out here working behind the scenes once again on something relating to backwards compatibility. Now, the timing of this is certainly interesting when you consider the fact that there have been multiple rumors and reports from insiders recently about PS3 games being playable on PS5, and then now we actually have some official citing of Mark Cerny working on this. So, boss. Hold on, guys. Do not become an agent of chaos today, boss. I really don't need that. Okay? All right. Be good today. And yeah, we do have a bonus topic here where if I have time to cover it, which again, we should, I'm probably going to make time for this one, is how Konami, or at least a producer at Konami, expressed his interest in wanting to work with Mr. Kojima once again, which is very interesting. So we'll talk about that as well. We have Maple Wolfie here saying Happy Canada's Day, Canada's birthday here from here in Canada. Actually, yeah, today is Canada Day, isn't it? So shout out to all of my Canadian listeners. I think I actually have quite a few of you guys that tune in from Canada. So shout out to you guys. Shout out to our neighbor here. Enjoy your day. It's all about you. All right. So Maple Wolfie, thank you so much for the super chat. And so, yeah, before we dive into any of the topics, I just want to thank you guys for tuning in. I know that it's, there's not a whole lot going on right now, and this is pretty usual, I would say, for the end of June. I don't know how long it will be throughout July, but kind of like when we're in the middle of the summer, or the summer is kind of just beginning. I guess it would be more accurate to say that. Things can really slow down, especially on the PlayStation side of things. So I just want to make sure to give a big shout out to those of you who are still, tuning in, still watching the content, still hanging out with me in this community, those who are here live, and especially, I say especially because I just don't want people to think that they don't matter. If you can't catch the streams live and you're watching them later on after the fact, I just want to make sure you guys know I appreciate that a lot as well. I know not everybody can tune in live, so thank you guys so much for all the support, is basically what I'm trying to say. We have Maple Wolfie deciding to re-up their membership once again, which is a great thing to see. So Maple Wolfie, thank you so much for that. You are kicking off the day here by re-upping your membership. So welcome back. This will be a good opportunity for me to let you guys know I am planning to do another members stream, members gameplay stream this week. And what we're going to do is Demon Souls. I don't know how many of you are interested in revisiting Demon Souls, but I did just recently platinum Elden Ring, and I kind of got the itch to go back to Demon Souls. I never did platinum Demon Souls. I don't know if I'm going to platinum it, but I got the itch nonetheless to go back and start playing it again, and I've been kind of grinding in Demon Souls a little bit, leveling up. So that stream could happen tomorrow. I'm aiming for tomorrow. If it has to happen a little bit later in the week, I will be sure to let you know. But this is something I've been trying to do a little bit more here on the channel. I'm sure as many of the channel members have noticed, some member-exclusive gameplay streams. You guys have been responding very positively to those streams, so that's why it's something I want to continue to do on a more regular basis. So this week we'll be doing Demon Souls, and maybe next week, I'm not sure about this. This could turn out to be false, but I'm thinking maybe the First Descendant. That game just came out, and I've actually seen quite a few people talk about it. We have Roland Leon, not Ronald Leon. Roland Leon coming in, deciding to also re-up their membership, joining Greatness Awaits. So Roland Leon, thank you so much for that. Not Ronald. Got to make sure we don't get it confused here. Roland, really appreciate that, bud. So you guys who are re-upping your memberships, I just want to make sure it's counting. No, hey, stop. Stop causing chaos. Let go. Let go of my mic. Boss, bro, let go. This cat, dude. Look at him. Look at him. He's evil sometimes, dude. He's like, I will destroy your mic. Listen, if you destroy the mic, you're going to lose your chance at feeding the beast. Okay? Do you want that? I don't think you want that. He doesn't want that. You want this. You want the treats, right? If you want the treats, you got to let me talk to the people here. All right? All right. So, you're biting the mic that feeds you. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, yeah, before we dive into the topics, I do just want to remind everybody that this stream, this channel, and this community is fully fan-funded. And when I say fully, I mean 100% fully fan-funded. We don't do sponsorships here, and that's because you guys support the content, you support the streams, you support Boss, and I very much appreciate that. So a couple of ways you can help support this community and this channel: hitting that like button. All right. If the only thing you can do is hit the like button, just know that that also helps quite a bit. So hit the like button to help the stream out. If you want to help support more directly, there are 3 ways you can do that. Number 1, become a channel member, as Roland, Leon, and Maple Wolfie have done here, you gain access to some exclusive perks. You gain access to the Members Lounge, which is a different type of stream that we do outside of the usual PlayStation news and gaming news. And we have some pretty interesting conversations, to say the least, in the Members Lounge. So you gain access to that. We do them very regularly. You also gain access to exclusive gameplay streams. If you are already a channel member, please consider gifting memberships. A lot of people very much appreciate those gifted memberships, and it goes a very long way in supporting the channel here. And you can also donate a super chat, ask a question, give an opinion, make a statement, anything in between. And there's a fourth bonus way in the chat, pinned comment, direct donation link. 100% of what you donate goes directly towards a content creator. So just a big thank you and shout out, as always, to those of you who support this channel and, frankly, sponsor the channel. Could not do it without you guys. We have an awesome community here, and I'm incredibly grateful for that. So, yeah, with that out of the way, guys, let's dive into the first topic here. And the first topic, I want to talk about Concord. I want to talk about the previews and what the previews are saying. People have went hands-on playing Concord and reporting on their thoughts so far. And I feel like this is the most appropriate thing to start with, because I know that some of you have been really eager to hear what I have to say about some of these previews. So we'll start there. You okay, boss? All right. I am going to have to move you now, though. All right. Let's go down here, okay? All right. So I found a Reddit post here. It's just a subreddit just titled Games, where they actually created a thread going over all of the Concord previews. And so I don't want to go through like entire articles, because it would just simply take too long, but we basically have the gist of what some of these outlets are saying about Concord. Now, before I go over this, I'm just going to preface my personal feelings on Concord so far, just so you know at which angle I'm approaching this at. For those who are not aware, although I think a lot of you are, I'm not excited about Concord in the least. I actually was very underwhelmed and frankly disappointed, as somebody who was waiting basically a whole year to kind of see what Concord was going to be. All I had to go off of was really quick, I wish you guys could see what I see. Don't. You are bad. I'm going to have to remove you, bro. I'm sorry. I just wish you guys could see what I could see. There's a chair behind my camera, and he sits on top of it. And I have two monitors that are like this, and there's a little gap in between that monitor. The gap is about this big. And I shit you not, I just see Boss's face just slide into that gap. And he's just staring at me. And I'm like, there ain't no way, dude. And he's just looking at me. And you know what he starts? He starts trying to remove the wire from my camera. Do you want snacks or not, bro? He doesn't get it. He doesn't understand. If you remove the wire from my camera, if you do anything to interfere with the stream to disconnect it, you're not you're literally sabotaging yourself. I'm sorry. I wish you guys could see what I just saw right there. Anyway, if he becomes more of a distraction, I will have to remove him, and we will bring him back if we get to the 25 member mark. We'll feed him. We'll feed the beast. But got to keep an eye on him. Anyway, yes, for those who are unaware, my thoughts on Concord, not very positive at all. I don't like the look of the game. I don't like the aesthetic. I don't like the fact that it is a hero shooter, because I'm not into hero shooters. And I know this all sounds very selfish, but it's I'm just being honest in my own feelings on what I'm seeing of Concord. There's just nothing about it that seems original or unique or interesting to me. The little vignette that they showed didn't do it for me. It just came off to me as knockoff, Guardians of the Galaxy. We have Guardians of the Galaxy at home. I'm gonna have to remove him. No, Guys, I'm sorry. I apologize. I got to think this through. I quit streaming. I'm done. All right. He's. I had to remove boss. I'm sorry. I apologize for so many interruptions. I really got to get better at determining when he should be here and when he shouldn't, because I know that there are people tuning in. They just really want to hear what I have to say about the topics. And I apologize, man. I'm gonna have to start making it so that I bring him in when we hit a certain goal or something, because he's getting more chaotic, and I think he, in his cat brain, he thinks that the more chaotic he gets, the closer he gets to getting his treats or whatever. But I'm not even kidding. Like, he was trying to knock over my light. He's trying to he's chewing the mic cord. He's trying to chew the camera cord. So yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on him. He's getting a little nuts in here. So all right, back on topic. Apologies once again, guys. Thank you for bearing with me here. Yes, generally speaking, Concord, the biggest problem to me about Concord, from what I've seen so far, before I go over the previews, just to again establish the preface here, is nothing about it looks particularly original. Nothing about it seems like it's trying to do anything unique or interesting or different. The only aspect about it that seems like they might be trying to do something a little bit different is the weekly vignettes for the characters, where every time you log in, like each week, they're going to have a new one and they're going to try to tell a story like that. But, again, if the first impression we're getting of that is that like 6-minute vignette that they showed at the most recent state of play, if that's kind of what they're shooting for, that doesn't really do much for me, because it just doesn't seem that interesting, to be completely blunt. And so, as I was doing these streams and reacting to, to seeing Concord for the first time, there were not a lot of people, but there definitely were some people who were like, "Oh, you can't judge it yet, man. You can't judge it yet. You gotta play it for yourself. Gameplay is king. We need to see how the game plays." And it's interesting when I think about Concord, how for me personally, the gameplay would literally have to be the greatest gameplay I've ever experienced to convince me to actually like want to play that game. I'm so turned off by everything about this game. It would literally have to be like, oh my god, this is like I don't know, like the dopamine hit is the strongest I've ever gotten playing a game. It would have to be that. And I say that because I don't know, that there's just you can tell that there's a certain recipe, I guess you could say, that went into the creation of Concord, and it's a little too obvious to me, and it's a little too on the nose. And I think for a lot of people, that's how they feel, where it's like this game just seems like, like it was just trying to check off boxes. And I get it, like a lot of games do that, and that's not always a bad thing. But when it seems like that's the only thing you're kind of like taking away from it, where it's like, this just looks like super generic. Like, it's also the reason why this game that just released, called The First Descendant, which I've seen people talking about, like, I'm only willing to play that out of desperation right now. Like, I'm absolutely desperate to play something different in the multiplayer space, but it looks unbelievably generic. Like, unbelievably generic. And it just seems like game developers, it feels like they're not even trying anymore, in a lot of cases. And I think that that's just kind of sad, because it's not to say that they make bad games. Like, I mean, what we're going to read about Concord here is apparently from a gameplay perspective, it is pretty good. Like, it feels good to play. So it doesn't sound like it's a bad video game, like as in the design is bad and it feels bad to play and it's not fun. It doesn't seem like that's the case, but it just seems like everything else around it is just working against it. Where it's like, we know gameplay is king. We all know that. Gameplay is king at the end of the day, but there is always more to it than that. There is. Whether you want to agree or not, when you think of if I were to ask you to list your top 5 favorite games, something you'll probably realize that separates those games is the gameplay, of course, but many other aspects that make up that game as a whole. So I'm just prefacing this before we go over these previews to let you know how I feel as of right now about Concord. These previews are not, I could tell you right now, like, they're not going to change my mind. They might make me feel a little bit better about trying the beta, but I'm not, if there's anything that's going to change my mind, it's going to be getting my hands on it myself and playing it myself and experiencing it and being able to walk away with, okay, how do I feel now that I played it? I just feel like that's worth mentioning here. We also have IP Gaming, a member for 13 months, saying, please answer all. Are you wearing pants? I am. Well, I'm wearing shorts. They're like legitimate shorts. So, why, Doc? Why? I don't know. IP Gaming, I don't know, man. I'm not touching that here right now. We'll see how it plays out. It's not looking good. It's looking real, real bad. Is Biden a moron? It seems like the answer is yes at this point. I mean, literally, it seems like his brain is practically melted, and he's struggling to speak, which is unfortunate because that is currently the president of the United States. But yes, it seems like he is he's really, really struggling. And on the bright side, we're getting some pretty funny memes from it. So it's like, it's kind of a trade-off here. Like, this is the leader of the most powerful country in the world. You get some pretty funny memes. So it's like, all right, well, at least we get something. Still need a Concord beta code. Well, I don't know. I would say yes, because I'm not pre-ordering the game. So IP Gaming, if you can hold on to that for me, like a beta code, and then maybe, I don't know, maybe I can set up a members lounge or something. See, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about the beta code, only because I was under the impression that the early access beta for Concord was going to be like an entire week, and then there was going to be an open beta like 3 weeks later or something. They're doing early access to the beta for like 2 days, I think, and then it opens up to everybody. So I'm kind of in this position where it's like I almost feel like I'm just okay to wait for it to go open. But if you're able to get me that code, sure, I'll try to make use of it. Why doesn't Sony ever talk? Sony does talk. Sony, it's just that people are not. What Sony has to say is not in alignment a lot of the times these days with what people are hoping Sony's going to say. A lot of the things that Sony has to say are pretty chill and relaxed and not like hype train, but more just like, we're just cruising along. We're having a good time. Everything's cool here. And then, there's like a lot of us are like, we want you to go faster. Like, come on, like speed it up. We're here for the excitement. And that will come. But I just think it's not that Sony doesn't ever talk. I think it's just that they're not necessarily saying the things that a lot of people are hoping to hear them say at this moment in time. MBG, can I drop some beta codes in the chat without being banned? Yeah, if you want to drop some beta codes, man, feel free. I'm not going to ban you for that. That'd be crazy. Feel free to do so. And then the last thing IP Gaming says here is, I love Hot Pockets. Dude, I love the taste of Hot Pockets. Haven't eaten them in a while. They're so bad for you. I feel like when I'm eating Hot Pockets, I'm definitely consuming microplastics. But man, they taste so good. It's been a while, though. It's been a long time since I've had a Hot Pocket. So I don't know. Maybe I'm due. But thank you for that, IP Gaming. You get a lot there. You get a lot out of that single. He's been saving that milestone chat. Let's head over to the Concord previews, though. We're going to start here with PC Gamer. The title says, Concord seems under-anticipated. Sony's hero shooter has some juice. Quite an interesting title. The reveal of Concord at Sony's last showcase was met with some boos from the balcony. Great, another Overwatch. But as Morgan pointed out, there isn't really a glut of hero shooters. They are popular, and Concord doesn't actually look that much like Overwatch. I've played it now, and can confirm Concord is not Sony Overwatch, and it's fun. I don't know if it'll be a Helldivers 2 level phenomenon, but if that's the multiplayer hit of the year, Concord could at least be the multiplayer hit of the summer. So, interesting. PC Gamer, first one we're going over here, saying some positive stuff. They're saying it's not Sony's Overwatch. Now, I can't really speak to that because I've never played Overwatch. I have seen quite a few people comparing this game to Overwatch, basically saying it's an Overwatch clone. I don't know what that means because I haven't played Overwatch. So even if Concord was an Overwatch clone and I do try it out and it is just like Overwatch, I wouldn't be able to tell you. But this individual from PC Gamer who's played Concord is saying it's not actually Sony's Overwatch. And they go on to say that it's fun. They then go on to say that, listen, this probably isn't going to reach the same heights as Helldivers 2, which I can tell you it absolutely will not. But they're saying that at most, and see, this is why I feel like even though this does seem like a positive preview, I don't know that it's as positive as people are taking it. This game, Concord, could be the multiplayer hit of the summer. Of the summer? That's it? That doesn't sound very good. You're talking like 3 months at the most. You know? This game is clearly being created to be sustained for years to come. So it's like, I guess what I'm trying to say is when it comes to live service games, I don't think I'm nitpicking. I'm not trying to nitpick. I'm just trying to look at it from a holistic viewpoint here where I'm not saying that means the game couldn't be good or couldn't be fun, but it's just knowing what Sony's goal is here. That's the important part to highlight. Sony's goal is we want a live service game that we can support for many years to come and can make us a lot of money for many years to come. If the biggest takeaway is it could be a hit for like a summer, that to me literally sounds like a classic multiplayer game, not a live service game. Does that make sense? Where it's like the whole reason we don't get classic multiplayer experiences anymore is because, well, it's not a live service. This multiplayer experience is meant to have its most amount of playtime and its biggest player base within the first couple months. And then after that, there's only a very small player base that maybe remains loyal for some time to come. But it's not a live service. It's not meant to just constantly bring waves of people back in. We don't get those types of multiplayer experiences anymore, which I think kind of sucks because I kind of liked it better that way in some instances. It has its flaws as well, but the idea of a game like this, that they're clearly setting it up where it's like we're going to have potentially years worth of content. We want to support this for years to come, and it's going to be a live service. I just that makes me wonder, because like there has to be something about this game that is making at least PC Gamer walk away saying, hey, it's good, it's fun, it's not an Overwatch clone, and it might be big for the summer. Like there's something there that is convincing this person that it doesn't have the legs. And I'm wondering what exactly that is. Maybe it is just the lack of content, although it sounds like it has a good amount of content at launch. I don't know. They don't really elaborate. So we'll move on to the Redfall PTSD kicking in. Oh, God. VGC. The title of VGC's preview reads as follows. First look, PlayStation's Concord is breaking new ground in live service games, in how live service games tell stories. So pretty big here. That's a pretty big headline. They're saying this game is groundbreaking. That's what VGC is saying. They're breaking new ground in how live service games tell stories. The gist of it here says, what Firewalk needs to spend far more time doing is showing off the game's gunplay, which, if it reaches the right audience, has real staying power. Interesting. VGC is saying the opposite of what PC Gamer's saying, where VGC is saying, based off of the gunplay, they believe it has real staying power. We want to play more, see more maps, and meet more characters. Mostly, we just want to shoot more guns. That's the audience the game must hook if it's to be PlayStation's second live service smash this year. It's not PlayStation's Overwatch. It's more like PlayStation's Destiny, Valorant caught 'em up. Try fitting that into a trailer. So, interesting. Now, this, I gotta say, this is the part that piques my interest a little bit, where if the previews are going to do anything for me, the previews are going to talk to me about the gunplay. How does it feel? Because we haven't seen a whole lot of it. And what I have seen, I will admit, it's like, oh yeah, you can see traces. You can see traces of Destiny, Halo, Call of Duty. It's all kind of mixed in there. And it does look pretty decent. Where it's like, okay, how would that feel? You know, it looks pretty good. Does it feel as good? And VGC is coming off of it saying, listen, and they're actually like tripling down on this. VGC is flat out saying the only way this game is going to win is if they like go all in with marketing the gunplay and how it feels to shoot guns in this game. That's interesting to me. It's also interesting that the title seems to be the opposite of that. Like the title of their article and their preview says they're breaking new ground in storytelling in live service games. But by the end of it, they're basically saying like, but if this game is to survive, you need to get people who care about smooth, good feeling gunplay because that's what this game offers. And I feel like the game, and that's what's so ironic, is I feel like the game has been focused on everything but that to a degree where, and even the conversation, right? Like even I can admit, I cannot stand the way this game looks. Like, I just can't stand it. I can't stand the aesthetic. It's so cringe to me. It's so, like, blech. You know? What is this slop? I've seen this, like, 10 times over in the last year. I don't want to see it again. Like, that's how it looked. That's literally visually how it looks to me. But even I can say that in those few small snippets where they're showing the first-person gunplay, aiming down sights, I'm like, okay, well, that, you know, that looks like could be good, maybe. But the conversations from both the developers as well as the consumer side, it's all focused on everything but that. And that's why I think VGC, what they're saying here is kind of interesting because it's like, well, I guess we'll see, right? We'll see. Here's my theory. If VGC is not being hyperbolic, if the gunplay in Concord is that good, like this is one of the best feeling shooty games ever. If it's really that good, then when people play the beta, that's what they're going to talk about. Like they're going to talk about other things, of course. Talk about the characters, talk about the pronouns, talk about some of the ridiculous designs and the whole 9 yards. Of course, they're going to talk about that. But if the gunplay is that good, we are going to see the old adage of gameplay is king. Again, if it's that good, because what did I say at the beginning of this? I said the only thing that would convince me to actually like stick with a game like Concord and actually feel like I'm enjoying it, the gameplay would have to be like next level, top tier, better than Call of Duty, better than Destiny, better than any other FPS I played. And I'm not saying it's going to be that. I don't think it will be that. But VGC seems to be under the impression that if this is how they position the game, it could have legs. So I don't know. We'll see if Firewalk does anything with that. I'm curious to see what people have to say once the beta drops. We have Sean Mitchell here. Thank you for the super chat, buddy. Saying, how far do you think Sony Bend Studio is from showing their next game? They must be getting annoyed with misleading info on Days Gone sequels. Not the first time it's happened. I feel their pain. Great question. Yeah, that was something that popped up last week where there was this website, never heard of it in my life, called Gaming Bible. And they put out an article where the headline read, I'm paraphrasing, but I'm not very far off. Days Gone trilogy confirmed by developer, and anybody who came across that, like, a lot of people read headlines. They don't actually read the articles, but that headline is as clickbait misleading as it gets, where it's like, no, well, like, technically the developer of Days Gone, the former director, did say that they were planning a trilogy. Yeah, he did say that, but he no longer works at Sony Bend. He hasn't for years, and he's no longer part of Sony. And he was very clearly in the context, just talking about the game and what they were planning like years ago. Sony Bend themselves did not say a single word about Days Gone. And to answer the first part of your question, like, how far out do I think they are from showing it? I will say, I think we still have some time for Sony Bend. I do. I think we have some time for Sony Bend just because they're working on a new IP, and it's going to be AAA, modern AAA. It's going to take a long time to finish up and to get close to that launch. It's going to take quite a few years. I think they started work on that new IP in 2021, if I'm not mistaken. And I think prior to that, they were really just trying to figure out what they wanted to do next and what was going on with the studio. So I think there was a little bit of a period there between the release of Days Gone and when they started work on the new IP, where they were just trying to sort some stuff out. So they maybe got a little bit of a late start there. And so I do think that Sony Bend's IP is something that we probably won't see this year. And I would even take it as far as maybe we won't even see it next year either. I could see it being a game that maybe we don't see till maybe even 2026. But that's just me playing it extremely conservative. Maybe they're making great progress with it. Maybe they are much closer to showing it than we think. But yeah, I'm sure they're frustrated as well. I imagine that for all of these AAA PlayStation studios, knowing that their games take many years to make and they want to start announcing these games closer to the actual release date, I imagine they get quite frustrated when they see these like kind of BS rumors. Just, they expect the BS rumors. We get that all the time. But when they start to see it kind of gain traction and they're like, come on, like, we literally haven't said anything. That's the internet in 2024, though. Unfortunately, that's the internet in 2024. A lot of people don't source stuff. But yes, I feel their pain too. So thank you for that super chat, Sean. We also have Chris B, longtime member, 46 months. Shout out to you, Chris. Thank you for that ride or die support there, buddy. You're saying, can't wait for 60 FPS Demon Souls in resolution mode. Keep it up, MBG. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I'm currently playing Demon Souls in the performance mode, and it still, we're like 4 years removed from that game coming out or releasing, and it was a launch title. And it still holds up, man. It's still one of the best looking PS5 games. I will say, though, since it's 4 years old, I can notice a few more, not flaws, but like, I can see in the resolution mode, oh yeah, like, if this could hit 60 FPS, now we're reaching like another level. Because Demon Souls in performance mode looks better than like 85% of games, maybe even 90% of games in performance mode. In resolution mode, it's still one of the best looking games that you can play on PS5. You have to play it at 30 FPS though. So if the pro can come in and take a game like Demon Souls and be like, yeah, we can give you that level of fidelity at a smooth 60 FPS, yeah, that'd be a great title for them, by the way, I think, to kind of enhance for the PS5 Pro. So Chris, we will see, man. We will see. Heading back to Concord Land. The next preview in line comes from Mobile Syrup. Never heard of this website in my life, but it is listed here. And the title of their preview says, I'm not a multiplayer guy, but Concord made a decent first impression. In the demo, we got to try 10 of the 16 free gunners that will be available at launch, and I'm already impressed with their versatility. I love that I can fall back on Lennox since I'm generally more of a guns blazing FPS player, while craftier folks can pick up someone like Daviers or One-Off. My only criticism of the gameplay design of some of these characters is that many rely on pretty standard pistol, rifle, shotgun weapon types. I wish there were a few more quirky and unorthodox characters like the aforementioned Daviers and One-Off, or even Hamar, a brooding mystic who can shoot explosive crossbow bolts, hurl fireballs, and glide. Seeing such a supernatural kit does make my boy Lennox look a bit plain in comparison. On the whole, though, this seems like a pretty diverse lineup so far, even with 6 more characters waiting in the wings. I also actually like the roster and the fact that it isn't massive to start, as it means you should be able to jump in and learn each one without feeling overwhelmed. Overwatch 2, with its 40-plus characters, might very well be deeper, but that's also daunting for a newcomer like me. So, very interesting here. A little bit more in-depth gist for this preview, but, basically saying that one of the negatives seems to be that there isn't a whole lot of super unique like gameplay styles where like a lot of the characters are relying on rifle, pistol, shotgun, etc. And he would like to see more of that, which I'm sure if they do support it with good DLC and more characters, we'll probably see that. But interesting. All right, so next up we have Screen Rant. Screen Rant, the title of their preview says, Concord Preview, fun competitive FPS with depth. Concord is shooting for the moon as a noteworthy up-and-comer to the tumultuous pool of team-based FPS hero shooters. There's a lot left to reveal, but there's definitely something special at its core. Developed in-house at Sony's own Firewalk Studios, Concord makes for an ambitious and tantalizing debut for its developer, with a decidedly diverse cast of characters and a pleasing sense of kinetic movement and verticality to the action. Its blend of sci-fi world building and peppy personality shines through, even while the game appears inescapably similar to other franchises in its associated genres. So, first off here, this is the first time out of all the previews we've covered where we have at least somebody here who played it saying that it does feel unique in its own right with the cast of characters and what it's offering. I will say a common thread I'm noticing with all of these previews seemingly is a lot of them are saying that it does feel different, that it actually is different from all of these games that it looks very similar to, if not the same. That is something that I am very curious if that thread exists after the open beta, because if that's true, we are going to see people confirming that. We are going to see people coming out and kind of parroting what the previews are saying, where it's like, yeah, it actually does feel different. It actually does feel unique. It actually does feel distinct, because the public right now, those who have not played this game, they're all basically saying the opposite. Everybody's basically saying it just looks like Overwatch, or like even I'm saying that. Like I can't escape. What is that sound? I can't escape the voices in my head, man. Sorry, it's just a really weird sound. I'm pretty sure it's a neighbor. Anyway, I never know anymore, man. I never know. I can't escape the fact that for me, this game it just looks unbelievably generic, man. All right, so the last preview here, and there are more previews out there. This is just what the roundup has here. Gaming Deputy. Again, some of these choices for these outlets, man. Gaming Deputy says, Concord, I played Sony's Overwatch competitor and it's really good. And now we finally get to the point. There are 3 things that made Concord so much fun for me from the start. And number one is the first-class shooter feeling. The shooting, aiming, and hit feedback are so good that I would put Concord in the top class, especially since despite the individual abilities of all the characters, you always have that feeling that you're playing a real shooter. Unfortunately, that is not the case with some hero representatives here. However, the balance is just right, even more so than with Overwatch. Number two, well, let's focus on the first point here. See, this is what I'm interested in finding out for myself. Like, this is the second preview where the person is specifically highlighting that the gunplay feels amazing. They're saying it's top class. So, in other words, it should go toe-to-toe with something like Call of Duty and how good it feels to aim your weapon and shoot somebody with it. That I'm interested. I played a lot of Call of Duty in my time, so I've always felt like when it comes to just how satisfying it feels to play a first-person shooter where you aim your weapon, you aim down sights, and you shoot an enemy player, I feel like Call of Duty's always been top class. I feel like, if anything, I feel like that's what has kept people hooked to that game for so many years, because they've perfected like the dopamine feedback loop of, oh, an enemy, aim, shoot, and just like boom, like, you know, the hit markers, everything, the sound it makes when you kill them, and the XP, you know, pop. I'm curious to see if this matches that, because honestly, if this is true, listen, if this is true, if the development team at Firewalk is like, they made one of the best feeling first person shooters ever, like the gameplay is like the gunplay, not gameplay, the gunplay. If it's that top tier, dude, scrap this game. Scrap the hero shooter nonsense. Let this team, if that's true, let them make a Call of Duty competitor, dude. If it's true. Because that's the thing that's what's really kind of sticking out to me here, is this common theme of like the shooting in this game feels absolutely phenomenal, like best of the best. And I do wonder if we're going to see a situation where it's like, dude, Firewalk absolutely cooked with gunplay. It's like some of the best we've ever experienced, and everything else just is like kind of bleh, you know, it's just like, you know, kind of run-of-the-mill hero shooter, you know, and of course the character designs and whatnot, you know. Let them make a Killzone. Well, you know what? I'm trying to just look beyond Concord, because I do wonder if this game flops, what will happen to the studio. Sony bought the studio. I don't think they would shutter them, even if this game flopped. I think maybe there you go. Kane Z7 says Killzone Rebirth by Firewalk. There we go. Maybe it'll take Concord's failure, but success gameplay-wise. I don't know. I'm just trying to see the silver lining here. But let me finish reading this preview. Number two is the flow of the game that focuses more on tactical action than a hectic crosshair flickering of Call of Duty. So I guess this is where they're saying it's very different from Call of Duty. Obviously, it's a hero shooter. I also think the fast-paced X-Defiant is very successful. However, if I have the choice in competitive online games, I prefer games like Concord, where the ratio of thinking to reaction is higher. And this is where factor number 3 comes into play, namely a fairly high time to kill. It takes a while for an opponent or yourself to die, which means you can react to unexpected fire instead of constantly lying on the ground frustrated. In particular, it ensures that duels are naturally decided by reflexes, accuracy, and knowledge of the level, but also largely by the correct use of skills, clever responses to problems, and, in the best case, a companion who intervenes in the action. Interesting. So, yeah, I don't know. That's like a 50-50 thing for me. I can enjoy games with longer time to kill. I have enjoyed games. PUBG is a game where the time to kill is incredibly long. The longest I think I've ever experienced in a game, and that's what makes that game so tactical. Obviously, this is nothing like PUBG, but just focusing on the time to kill part, Call of Duty is the opposite. Call of Duty is very quick, very fast time to kill. The time to kill is usually so quick in Call of Duty, you don't even have time to process how or why you even died, and you're just back out there. A game like PUBG is the exact opposite, where death is the worst thing because once you're out, you're out. You're not coming back. And this match could go on for another 15 or 20 minutes if you're playing with a squad. So, yeah, I don't know. Again, this is one of those situations where I'd have to just experience it myself to know to know how the time to kill really impacts my feeling on the game. Some people said that the time to kill felt closer to something like Halo. Okay. Yeah, I could see that. Because I assumed, just based off of it being a hero shooter, like I assumed it would be pretty decent time to kill. I don't think there's many hero. I could be wrong. I'm not very familiar with hero shooters, but I've always gotten the vibe from hero shooters that like you don't really have instant time to kill, because that kind of negates the whole idea of having abilities, you know? Where if you just kill people that quick, there's really no point to your abilities. Your abilities are supposed to give you some kind of advantage, or some kind of edge. JMR77 says, MBG, there was a rumor years ago that Sony Bend were working on an open world Hitman style game, something like that. Yeah, I remember that. I don't know if that rumor's true or not. I hope it is. The rumor was that Sony Bend is working on like a tactical espionage game that blends like Metal Gear Solid 5, Hitman, and Splinter Cell, which sounds incredible. Like too good to be true. So we've never gotten any follow-up on that rumor, so it could have just been a bunch of nonsense. I hope it wasn't. Adama the Dragon says, or Dragoon says, it varies between heroes. Tanks have more health / defense, while DPS heroes do more damage but die fast. Okay. Yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to get my hands on Concord. I gotta be honest, like, I'm not excited to play it. Just being brutally honest, I know that for anybody who is excited, maybe that feels shitty to hear me say, but I don't like what I'm seeing of Concord. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get over the just without turning it into a political conversation, because I'm tired. I don't want to hear any more of it. Like it's a bunch of noise at this point. Putting that aside, just literally, like, you guys remember Destruction All Stars? I know you guys remember Destruction All Stars. Do you remember what I said about Destruction All Stars? Remember how I said, man, I just don't like the way this game looks. This looks kind of cringy to me, and I'm just like, I'm not feeling the vibe here. But I played it anyway because it was free on PlayStation Plus, and yeah, I was like, dude, these characters are not interesting to me. Like, these characters kind of suck, and it feels like this game is trying way too hard. That was the feeling I got with Destruction All Stars, where it felt like you're trying way too hard to be, like, I hate to put it this way, but it's like sometimes it feels like these games try so hard to be diverse that they don't realize, like, you inadvertently, like, you were too focused on the diversity aspect and not focused enough on, but is it interesting? Like, did you make these characters interesting? Did you make, what they have to offer actually interesting? That was kind of the vibe I got with Destruction All Stars, where I was like, this just isn't doing it for me. And the gameplay was pretty mediocre as well. It was fun for a couple of rounds, and I'm like, all right, this kind of sucks. So I'm gonna head out now. And I did, and I never really looked back, and I don't have like fond memories with that game. It was just perfectly fine. I mean, I can remember, if I think about it hard enough, I can remember having a couple of pretty decent matches, but there just wasn't enough there to keep me hooked. And just the overall style of the game was just like, yeah, this is not. I'm good. I'm just gonna move on. I'm getting the exact same feeling with Concord. Like the feeling I had towards Destruction All Stars is exactly the same. The only difference, again, is that you're telling me in Concord I can shoot guns. Okay, there's a chance. There is a chance that gunplay could hook me, but there's also plenty of other games where I can shoot guns. So we're going to see, man. We're going to see. I will say, and this will, I guess, be my kind of conclusive thought on Concord and what we've heard so far from the preview cycle. My conclusive thoughts are just on the previews. It's at least good that the game, that like the people who played it are not coming out and being like, oh yeah, that's not good. This game is not fun. This game is bad. This game doesn't feel good. And there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of negativity. There's clearly concern about whether or not this game is going to land, like, with people. Like, is it going to catch on? That there's clearly concern there, and I can't tell if the previewers are saying that based off of what they played. Like, what we played did not convince us this will be the next, hit live service game, or I can't tell if they're basing that off of the reactions from other people being like, you see the intense negative reaction from players, from people before being able to play it. And I don't know, it just seems like it's kind of a mixed bag right now where it's like, is this game going to win people over? I'm leaning towards no. I'm leaning towards no. I don't listen. It's good to hear that the previews are good, but I still stand by my original feeling on this game, man, which is I think this game's going to flop brutally. I do. I think it's going to be bad. I'm not saying I want that to happen, because I'm not saying I want games to be bad. I'm not saying I don't want to see Sony, with a studio that they bought. I don't want to see them come out and it's like, oh my God, they just completely shit the bed. I'm not rooting for that. But based off of everything I've seen, I think that it's going to take, there's going to have to be such a massive lift that will only happen through people being, I don't know, man, it's going to have to catch fire. That's what's going to have to happen. What happened with Helldivers 2 is going to have to happen to this, not to the same level. Concord doesn't need to sell 12 million to be successful. No chance. But I don't think Concord's even going to sell 1 million. I don't even think Concord's going to sell 1 million units. And, I think when it's all said and done, and we'll see if I'm wrong about this. I've been wrong about many other things, so we'll see if this is one of those things I'm also wrong about. I think when it's all said and done, we're going to look back at 2024, and it's going to be the year where Sony experienced the biggest success a live service game can experience, but also the biggest flop that a live service game can experience. I think when it's all said and done, we're going to look back at 2024, and it's going to be such a strange situation where it's like Sony won and lost at the same time in the same year, where one game hit and one game didn't. And yeah, I was thinking about talking about that too. I saw that was being reported on, that Helldivers 2 lost 90% of its players. I want to say this really quick. Talking about Helldivers 2, it's a serious question. I'm not trying to come off cynical for the sake of it. It's an honest to God question where it's like, did people really think that Helldivers 2 would be a huge live service mainstay for years to come? And if so, what made them think that? That's a serious question. I'm seriously asking, what made people think that this was going to be the game that's it's going to stay up there with the Fortnites and with no competitive aspect? I thought maybe it could if they like I remember saying this a while ago, and a lot of people disagreed. I was like, because somebody presented the idea to me. They were like, maybe if they were to bring like a multiplayer component to it, like a more like a PvP component, then they could like build off that. And I remember entertaining that and thinking, yeah, I could see them doing that. That would actually be pretty smart because it's a whole different way to play the game and something that could live its own life. But I remember at the time, a lot of people were like, no way, dude. Helldivers is not a PvP game. You can't turn that into a PvP game. And maybe they were right. Maybe that would be disastrous. But I just honestly think to myself, like, as a purely co-op game where, like, you just shoot things together and do these little missions together and blow up things together, like, it's clear that people loved it. But I always just kind of got this feeling in the back of my head, like, how long are people going to love that for? Because the thing that keeps people coming back to the competitive, because that's the thing about all of these live service games, dude, is they all share the common, I would say, defining factor for long-term live service games is there's a competitive aspect to it. Now, maybe you could look at something like Destiny, where even Destiny does have PvP, but like people keep coming back for the expansions and stuff, and maybe they could do something like that, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. Like if they are working on some kind of massive raid with story content or something, and they release that for Helldivers 2, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, either way, they won, dude. Like that's the thing about Helldivers. Even if they do lose like 90% of their player base and 90% of people never come back, they won, dude. Like that studio was never supposed to find that success. And they sold over 12 million. They're one of the most respected studios. At least I think they are. They're one of the most respected studios for what they achieved. And Helldivers 2 definitely left its mark, man. Regardless of where it goes in the future, it left its mark. We also have Kane Z7 with another super chat here saying maybe give Concord a PS Plus members. Or you're saying like release Concord to PS Plus members. Fake build that player base like Xbox does to Game Pass games. Damn. Well, I'll tell you what. If Sony really feels that this game is going to flop and like flop hard, they're not going to do that like right now. I would love to know what the pre-orders look like for Concord. I would love to know what the pre-order numbers look like, dude. But they're going to see it through. To me, that's obvious. Like Sony is going to commit to releasing this game and supporting it for at least a little bit, like at least the first couple months. But I wouldn't be surprised if Concord by the end of this year or early next year is like, it's free on PS Plus, guys. I wouldn't be surprised. Sony's going to at least try. Sony invested in the studio, man. Like, they're not just going to walk away. They can't. But, yeah, something like Helldivers 2 is probably giving Sony a lot of confidence, right? Like, if you're Sony, you're probably thinking to yourself, well, hey, man, nobody thought Helldivers 2 was going to be the next big thing. Nobody thinks Concord is going to be the next big thing. So, but if I was Sony, if I was Sony, and I saw what happened to Helldivers 2, I would be smart enough to know, like, that shit doesn't just happen, dude. Like, you think that's going to happen twice? Fat chance, man. I wouldn't be sitting there thinking it's going to happen again. That's all I'm trying to say. Random question. Do you think they should add reflex mod in MGS Delta? I don't know what that is. I'm not sure what that is. Okay. Give me one sec, guys. We're going to move on to the next topic here. If you could do me a favor and hit that like button. We're sitting at 119 likes. Let's see if we can bump that up to 150. Definitely helps the streams more than you know. Oh, there is actually one more thing regarding Concord I meant to go over here. It says Firewalk Studios Concord was announced last year, but received its first proper gameplay reveal at the recent State of Play. Despite the differences in setting and characters, the fact that it's a hero shooter spurred some comparisons to Blizzard's Overwatch. Fortunately, the development team seems to be taking these comparisons in its stride. In VGC's first look, lead characters designer John W is what I'll call him, said, "I'm not bothered by it at all. Overwatch is a great game, and that team did some incredible stuff for that genre. At the same time, I strongly believe that our game has an identity that is unique to itself, and that it plays like nothing else out there." So just wanted to briefly throw this in there that the team at Firewalk has acknowledged these comparisons. And so, yeah, they're unfazed by them. They're, I think he's answering it in the best possible way where it's like, yeah, it's, they did great things. So that's a compliment in a way, but they also believe it's its own unique thing. So. All right. So next topic in line, I'm going to talk about Housemarque's next game. I want to ask you guys how many people here are fans of Returnal? How many of you played Returnal? Is there anybody here who platinumed Returnal? Oh, Bubsy. Okay, you're saying the slow motion. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. In Metal Gear Solid 5, when you get caught, it's called reflex mode, where you have like a couple seconds in slow motion to react to it. I don't think that they'll bring that in, personally. Got the Returnal Platinum, mass produce. Otacon says he loves Returnal. Tarnish the Witch says love Returnal on PC. Steve says he played it was okay. Interesting. There's a lot of love for Returnal here. Hold on, guys. I'm sorry. Hold on. Phone's blowing up over here. You want Returnal 2? Well, Returnal 2 is not in development. So let's go over the report here from WCCF Tech. PlayStation's Returnal studio Housemarque is looking for a senior game designer for its next AAA action title. The Finnish studio became part of PlayStation Studios in 2021, shortly after the successful release of Returnal. Last year, the roguelike third-person shooter also made its way to PC. It's been 3 years since the global launch of Returnal, and as spotted on LinkedIn, the PlayStation-owned studio is now hiring for its next, quote, big game. Although the job ad doesn't necessarily include details about the studio's next title, it mentions that the game designer will focus on enemy and boss designs. If you wish to join our next journey, apply today, the ad reads. We are looking for a senior game designer focusing on enemy and boss designs for our next big game. Other interesting tidbits from the job offer include a passion for action games, as well as enemy and boss design. In addition, the offer mentions proficient in the use of Unreal Engine. And so, yeah. It says here, as covered back in 2022, we know that Housemarque is working on a new IP for PlayStation. We had our stint working on multiplayer games because a few years back, it seemed like you needed to have some kind of multiplayer experience. This is what Housemarque's managing director, Laurie Kitunen, I don't know if I'm saying his name correctly, said in 2022. We tried that and we really didn't do it as well. But it's the early days with us starting a new game, a new IP, concepting it out. We'll see what comes with that. So, yeah, I thought that this would be important to let you guys know that we're not going to be getting a sequel to Returnal 2, at least not like a direct sequel, or I said Returnal 2, a sequel to Returnal. They are going to, well, they are working on a new IP, because it's worth noting that they acknowledged a little while ago that they're working on a new IP. I'm curious as to, we talked about Sony Bend a little bit ago about when could we see Sony Bend's new game. I I'm wondering if it's a possibility we could maybe see a sequel. Sorry, not a sequel. A reveal from Housemarque before Sony Bend, only because something that seems clear to me based on this job ad is where they say it's their next big AAA game. We know it's a AAA game. We know it's going to be big. We know it's going to be bigger than Returnal. But I feel like Returnal may have set a kind of foundation for them. You guys get what I mean? Where like this job ad also clearly illustrates to me anyway that they are leaning in to the action, the whole over the top, fast paced. Well, maybe I'm assuming too much, but I just feel like there's a formula that they may have established with Returnal that they probably feel like we should do something somewhat similar. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if this new IP from Housemarque is actually very similar to Returnal and that it is a roguelike and it's very fast paced, very hectic. And there's I mean, they straight up say in the job ad there's going to be a focus on boss battles. That was one of the highlights easily of Returnal is the boss battles. They were awesome and pretty memorable and they stood out. And there was a level of storytelling with Returnal that was also somewhat unique from what, different from what we usually get from PlayStation Studios, where there was a story there and it was told in a different way. It was told in a more ambiguous way. And I honestly think that they nailed it. I'll be honest, I think Returnal's a bit underrated. Like I see some games out there that get like really high ratings and stuff and get a lot of praise for X and Y reason. And when I look back at some of the things that Returnal achieved, it's like, I don't know, man. Like Returnal's better than like a lot of other games. Like it's doing a lot of things like not just like well enough or very good. Like it's doing some things incredibly well, like better than anybody. And so, yeah, Returnal was a great game, man. And I know that there's maybe some concern, right, about PlayStation and PlayStation Studios and the direction they're going in and whatnot. But Housemarque, at the very least for me, is one of those studios that's just, I have the utmost faith in that whenever they are ready to show off their new game and they announce it, knowing it's a new IP, I think they're going to knock it out of the park. I do. I think that here's what I'm wondering, okay, about Housemarque's next game. Returnal for Housemarque was easily the biggest game that Housemarque ever made, like by far and away. And they talk about this. They do not hide the fact that for their studio, Returnal was massive, and it was a game that basically propelled them to now being a AAA studio. And I do think Returnal was a big game. I remember there was a lot of arguments kind of occurring on the internet when Returnal launched that it was like overpriced. It was a $70 game, and there was like a lot of people like being like, I don't think it's worth $70. And I was always in disagreement where I'm like, I don't know, man. This game does look like it'll be worth $70. And I ended up putting over 100 hours into Returnal. Now, granted, 30 of those hours were for that damn RNG, the freaking RNG collectibles, that was probably the weakest part of the game for me. But even without that, I put about 60 to 70 hours just playing the game. And I felt totally satisfied by the time I finished it. And the only reason I put so much extra time into it was to get the platinum. But I was completely satisfied with it. And I was like, damn, dude, this game was easily worth $70. Like, just one of those titles where, like, from start to finish, the journey, the experience, it was top tier. And so what I'm curious to know is how much bigger in size, scale, and scope their next game may or may not be. And this is a question I want to ask you guys. For those of you who have played Returnal and you have beaten Returnal, do you feel that their next game, Housemarque's next game, should be about the same size? as Returnal, about the same length, or do you think that they should try to see if they can go bigger? Do you think to see if they can go further? Damn, actually, have 330 hours in Returnal. Tower of Sisyphus. Oh yeah, yeah. 330 hours. That's crazy, bro. I thought I put a lot of time in that game. Ex Cathedral really liked Returnal. One of the only games that kept you playing after you got the platinum. Some of you guys are saying you think Housemarque should go bigger. Wild Wolf says same size. I think what they should do is go slightly bigger, but not much bigger. That's how I feel. I think Returnal's almost perfect in its pacing and how big it is, but I also do feel like when I look at the game and I think about, I mean, the areas where the game was like a little bit bigger, I think, than I'm even remembering, because I'm starting to remember some of the areas and there was like a level of procedural generation, if I'm not mistaken. I think they could go bigger, man. Yeah, I do. But I think it really depends on what that looks like. Like, I don't know that they necessarily need to make. Maybe I mean they could make the arenas, as I would call them, bigger. Right, each area you enter, they could make them bigger. They could put a heavier emphasis on exploration potentially. But the area where I would like to see them really go next level, if it's possible, and this is where I'll leave it to them. You know, they're the pros here. This is their job. This is what they have to focus on. I want to see them go next level with boss fights. You know, like I want to see them really lean into boss battles. And I think, you know, when you think of boss battles, you think of like From Software. You know, From Software is like the goat of creating like insane boss battles. And I think some of the boss battles in Returnal were incredible. But I think Housemarque really showed a potential for like, you guys could maybe, what else can you do with these boss battles? How crazy can they get? I think that's an area where and it seems like based on this job listing, they might be leaning into that. Yeah, they could maybe have like they could take some cues from Elden Ring, have some secret bosses, some dungeons, secret dungeons. But either way, man, Housemarque is one of those studios underneath PlayStation that I think I speak for most people when I say we're excited to hear from them, you know, to find out what they're working on next, and to see what their next project could be. I mean, obviously there's always the chance that they could let us down. Like there is the chance that Returnal could be their peak, but I don't think anybody's assuming that. Um it just seems like Housemarque, I think that they have a good trajectory. You know, Housemarque is one of like the fact that they're not doing a direct sequel to Returnal, that is probably the most exciting part to me, because I feel like we've gotten a lot of sequels from PlayStation Studios, and a lot of them were absolutely warranted. You know, God of War Ragnarok, Horizon 2, we're going to get Horizon 3, we're going to get more God of War, obviously, Spider-Man. You know, we're going to get a sequel to Ghost of Tsushima, and a lot of these are warranted. It'd be crazy not to get sequels to some of these games. This is where I think this might be a major advantage that Housemarque has over most other PlayStation studios, where like they probably could have done a sequel to Returnal if they wanted to. And logically speaking, like logic tells you like Returnal's our most successful game. We should do another one. You call it whatever we do, just make sure we call it Returnal 2. Instead they're like immediately like, no, we're gonna do something brand new now. That is probably what has me the most excited, because I mean, at that point, the sky's the limit. You know what I mean? When I think about the setting of Returnal, I think about, you know, how Returnal was kind of a dark game in a way. Like if you actually followed the story and you start to understand the meaning of the things around you and what it represents, it's a uniquely dark game. And I think it really just kind of speaks to the skillful storytelling that Housemarque has proven they're capable of. Just the idea that now they can they could go anywhere and do anything, and take everything that they've learned and everything they've accomplished with Returnal and apply it to whatever they do next. I'm super excited, man. I am. I don't know when we're gonna hear about their next game, and this is just a job ad. It's not like they're teasing it or anything, but yeah, I think Returnal. I do think there's a certain to a certain degree, Returnal is underrated. But as time goes on, I do notice that more and more people are starting to kind of, you know, wake up to it a little bit. Where I feel like I'm noticing more love for Returnal now than maybe I was even the year it came out. And I think that's because a lot more people have gotten the chance to try it. I think that a lot more people maybe have overcome that kind of barrier to entry, which I think does exist with a game like Returnal, where Returnal will kick your ass and you can't just, I mean, maybe if you're really, really skilled, you could just go in and immediately do amazing at the game. But I feel like there's a certain trial by fire for most people that you kind of have to go through with a game like Returnal. And once you get through that, you're like, whoa, you know what? I totally get it now. And you kind of feel like it reminds me of like the Souls games a little bit, where like once you overcome some of those boss battles, you get it. It clicks. We have actually Get Some Trismegistus coming in, dropping a 5 bomb for you guys.
Get some! Get some!
He brings us up to 7 members on the day. Exley, thank you so much for that, my friend. Exley's always out here dropping some membership bombs for you guys. So let's get some W's in the chat for Exley here. And I will update that. Let's see. Good stuff, man. Always appreciate the support. One day we're going to be calling him actually, I would say Returnal, but whatever the name of the next Housemarque game is probably going to replace the Get Some. Actually, saying your birthday was Saturday, had some Korean barbecue and it was amazing. Oh, well, happy belated birthday, dude. That does sound amazing. Korean barbecue. Damn. Yeah, I hope you had a good birthday, man. I meant to. I would have known sooner. I meant to stream yesterday, but I wasn't able to, which was rare. I think I've had Korean. The thing is, I think I had Korean barbecue when I was very young, and I remember loving it, and I'm like, this is amazing. But I think that was like the only time in my life. Like I had it a couple times when I was really young, when I was like 7 or 8 years old, and it definitely had a distinct taste to it where I'm like, this is incredible. I haven't had it since though. I should have some. I should have some Korean barbecue. It's been too long. Good stuff, man. It was great. Korean barbecue, UFC 303 made it a fun day. Good stuff. Love to hear it. Love to hear it. I had Chinese food recently. Again, there's this place really close by. It's not like, I don't know. I think it's good. It's not like high end Chinese food, but it's this place close by. They're held in pretty high regard, and I order from them pretty frequently. And I always look forward to it because they just. I don't know if you guys ever have that like kind of go to Chinese food place where it's like every time you go, it's just your go to because they always hit. Like they never miss. And I feel like that was me recently. Man, that was a quick we went from talking about Returnal to Korean barbecue to me telling you about ordering Chinese food. What happened there? But yeah, man, I can't wait to hear from Housemarque again. And I guess the question I have, other than how much bigger the game will be, obviously what type. Well, I think we know what type of game it'll be. I think it'll be very similar to Returnal. I really just wonder, like, if it's going to be a PS5 game. I think we could get another Housemarque game before the end of the generation because Housemarque was one of the first studios ready to go. I remember that Returnal was a game that was revealed during the PlayStation 5 the first showcase, the future of gaming. So I do think that I do think there's a really good chance we could get another game from them before the end of the generation. Stir fry those hornets and see how they taste. Yeah, no thanks, bro. Yeah, just add a little WD-40 and some flavor there. It'll be a PS5 game for sure. I'm thinking so. Yeah, I'm thinking. I mean, the only way I could see Housemarque's next game missing PS5 and somehow, like, I think it'll be cross-gen no matter. Or let me rephrase this. It'll be PS5 no matter what. But I guess what I'm saying is the only way I could see Housemarque's new game, like, somehow taking so long that it doesn't come out until the PlayStation 6 is if they had some kind of like major development problem where like they had to basically restart development or something, which I don't think that would be the case. You know, that does happen from time to time. And sometimes you don't even know about it. But I don't know. I just feel like that wouldn't happen with Housemarque. But there you go, man. Brazilian barbecue. Only if you like to eat meat. Now that I've never had. All right, so we're going to move on to the next topic. Which talks about good old Mark Cerny. Cerninator. God.
It's dangerous to rely on teraflops.
We love us some Mark Cerny here. I mean, it's not another interview or anything, but there's been all this talk recently about backwards compatibility, or if not proper backwards compatibility, being able to play PS3 games on your PS5. There's always this kind of conversation, I think, with PlayStation when it comes to older games and what Sony is doing to support them, and backwards compatibility. So we have a report here from PlayStation Lifestyle. It says PlayStation architect Mark Cerny has filed a fresh patent for backwards compatibility, giving rise to speculations that Sony is working on bringing PS3 games to PS5 natively. However, Mark Cerny's history of filing similar patents and the timing of the application suggests that Sony might just be gearing up for the PlayStation 6. The patent in question was brought up by Respawn First over the weekend, but we retrieved the actual link recently. Reading through the technical jargon, Sony says that it has invented a new system for testing older games in a new environment, titled Backward Compatibility Testing in Software in a mode that attempts to induce skew. Sony says that if a new device has higher or even lower performance than a legacy device, backwards compatibility issues will occur. This method attempts to overcome those issues, standard stuff. Back in 2022, Cerny filed a similar patent. While we do know that he's constantly tinkering with PlayStation's architecture, it's entirely possible that this has nothing to do with older systems. In other words, at this point in PS5's life cycle, Sony could be working on ensuring PS6's compatibility with PS5 or other legacy consoles. So we do got to be a little bit careful with this one, where we can't jump to the conclusion that this has anything to do with PS3, but the timing of it is conspicuous. There's been multiple reports, as we covered on the channel, from insiders claiming that Sony, is planning to reveal at some point. They're planning to reveal at some point that, hey, you can play some PS3 games. Now, it's not going to be true backwards compatibility. Some people are quick to remind me that true backwards compatibility would be, you'd be able to literally take your library of physical PS3 games and play them on your PS5. So I don't think anybody's necessarily expecting that. So when I say backwards compatibility, I'm really just referring to being able to play them natively. And I don't know that's what this is for, right? Because it is true that if Sony is currently working on the PlayStation 6, which Mark Cerny did recently reveal in an interview that it takes about 4 years to develop a console. It takes about 4 years. Well, we're at that point now where, yeah, Sony and Mark Cerny would be beginning to work on the PlayStation 6. It's very much possible that this patent we're looking at is essentially Mark Cerny ensuring that backwards compatibility will be smooth sailing, for PlayStation 5, PlayStation 5 Pro, as well as PS4 and PS4 Pro, because that's what'll be interesting about the PlayStation 6 is the PlayStation 6 is going to be a console, presumably, where you can play PS5 games, obviously, but PS4 as well. And I just would imagine that, yeah, there's some level of work and planning that has to go in that. I mean, yeah. But I feel like recently there's been a lot of conversation around playing PS3 games on PS5 and backwards compatibility in general. And what are the chances? Now, this would be an interesting thing. And I remember building up to the PS5, there was this big conversation, and it happened constantly. And it was full backwards compatibility. Like the idea that you buy a PS5 and you have access to all of the PlayStation generations. PS4, 3, 2, 1. And this is like kind of the dream, right? The dream is you can buy this one PlayStation console and you have access to all these games. Now, granted, I don't think true full backwards compatibility will ever actually be a thing. I don't think that's possible at this point. I don't think it's I mean, I guess anything is possible, but I just don't think it's realistic, I should say, to ever expect to buy a PlayStation console. And if you're like somebody who has been collecting PlayStation games from the very beginning, where you have physical PS1, 2, 3 games, that you're just going to be able to pop them in and play them, I don't think that will ever be a thing, unfortunately. But when it comes to like the game preservation side of it and Sony trying to like leverage it for their own storefront of like, oh yeah, we're updating these games. We're seeing them do that with PS2 games, PS1 classics, PSP, and presumably PS3 at some point. It's kind of like the best we're gonna get in a way, And I guess what I'm wondering is if Sony maybe could be saving all this stuff for a PlayStation 6 rollout. Like we're under the belief, at least some of us, that all these rumors we're hearing about PS3 backwards compatibility, that's something that Sony wants to announce soon. When in reality, like maybe they're going to save it for the PlayStation 6. Because if you think about it, I mean, that's going to be a talking point. Like you may not be able to say full backwards compatibility with every generation of PlayStation. You will be able to say full backwards compatibility with PS5 and PS4, and then native, the ability to play games natively from PS3, PS2, and PS1. And maybe that would be good enough, man. I mean, that would be a hell of a marketing ploy that Sony could pull off there for the PlayStation 6. Maybe I'm wrong though. Maybe it doesn't work like that. Maybe Sony isn't planning on saving anything. Maybe they're just going to say, hey man, this is ready to go, so we're just going to launch it. I mean, there is PlayStation Plus. Sony doesn't want to lose subs, obviously. Sony wants to do anything they can to keep as many people subscribed to PlayStation Plus Premium. So it could be one of these things where it's like we really can't wait. Like we have to do it now as soon as it's ready. So that way we can get as many people, retain as many people as we can. That's a possibility as well. But yeah, not really much else to say on this topic. Again, there's not really any like big topics of discussion right now, just kind of like smaller stuff. And so at the very least here, we can walk away from this acknowledging the fact that Mark Cerny just filed another patent for backwards compatibility, and he's still working on it. He's still working on something regarding backwards compatibility, but we have another topic here. And again, this is going to be a short one, but it's in an attempt to clarify a couple of things here. I have a report here from PlayStation Lifestyle. No, Sony is not ending PlayStation game discs. Wild speculations emerged over the weekend that Sony Interactive Entertainment is gearing up to cease production of PlayStation game discs after a Japanese report was taken out of context. Although the report itself is in English, it pertains to blank optical disc production, specifically in Japan, and has nothing to do with Sony's gaming business. According to Minichi Japan, Sony is cutting around 250 jobs from its recordable media business. The usual engagement farmers on X shared the report with misleading text, leading to another round of console wars and strange panic among fans. Dude, can I just say here for a second? Yeah, like I'm just gonna go on a little rant here. Little rant. You know what? Let me finish reading the article. Reel it back. Popular X user Wario64 was one of the individuals who shared the report and got hit with community notes, but understandably, it did not stop the console warriors. It says it certainly doesn't help that an all-digital future is a recurring topic in gaming circles. Recently, well, we already talked about that, where Matt Piscatella said that he thinks we're not going all digital till at least the PlayStation 7. Somebody replied to Wario64 saying, Vantiva, for example, is responsible for 80 to 90% of discs in North America. Technicolor is the same, but for Europe and Asia. This impacts a very small portion of the manufacturing market, not replication. Sony closed the majority of its manufacturing a decade ago. Most game and movie replication isn't using Sony discs. This impacts predominantly self-writing media, aka BDR, etc. Sony always pioneers a tech and then outsources to far cheaper external manufacturing. This is no different. So, guys, basically, what I'm trying to tell you and what the article here is trying to tell you is that this is a whole lot of nothing. This is nothing. Like, this is a literal nothing burger, man. Like, especially if you're somebody who's just focused on gaming. You know? Like, if you're somebody who's focused on gaming and you're wondering, like, oh man, does this mean Sony's going like digital? Like, no, there's literally, and I know the word literally is used too often when it shouldn't be, but in this context, literally, this has nothing to do with PlayStation or the gaming sector or physical video games. It has nothing to do with it. And so if you're somebody who's wondering, like if you're just a normal person where you're maybe seeing some of these reports and you're seeing all this nonsense that people are talking about and you're like, what's going on here? And the only question you're asked with or left with that you're asking is, so what does this mean? I like to buy my games physically. What does this mean for me? What changes? The answer is absolutely nothing. So, can I still buy my games physically for PS5? Yup. Is it going to be any harder to do so? Nope. Is the PlayStation 6 going to be all digital? Probably not. You know, that's the truth, man. Like, Sony is doing what they've always done, where they basically outsource this shit. And this pertains to Japan only as well. So it's the rant that I wanted to go on here. It's not to defend Sony, because there's nothing to defend. Like, so, you know, I don't want Sony to go all digital. I don't want anything to go all digital. You guys already know this. My rant actually pertains to the level of misinformation. Like, it's just getting worse, man. It's just, I get that people are bored. Believe me, I get that people are bored. I get that people like the drama, and sometimes people will indulge in either artificially manufacturing drama or willingly partaking in it, knowing that maybe it's a bit disingenuous because it's boring. I get that. Like, I totally get that. But my God, man, like, it just, don't people get tired of it? Like, don't people get tired of like constantly jumping on things just to realize that, like, well, it turns out that you got most of your information off of X or from random profiles of people on X or Twitter or whatever, and these people don't know what they're talking about. You know, like most of them don't know what they're talking about. And to be fair, in this specific instance, I can kind of understand why some people would read this and assume, like, oh, this doesn't sound good for physical PlayStation video games. Like, I get that. And even I could see, like, oh, yeah, what does this mean? But all you need to do is just kind of like, read what the article is actually telling you, and it just like flat out is telling you, like, yeah, Sony's going to be outsourcing. This pertains to Japan. This pertains to like Blu-rays, like movies mostly and stuff like that. Like, not a single thing is said about games. And that's, I guess, I don't know, maybe it just speaks to the lack of gaming news right now, where something like this, and I feel like this is something that happens almost on a cyclical basis, where every time the gaming news cycle slows down, it feels like, there's all these eyeballs everywhere searching for the next topic, the next thing. And when there's not a whole lot going on, they kind of hyper fixate on things that it's like, oh, well, that doesn't seem like that big of a deal, or that doesn't seem like, that doesn't seem like making a big, like something worth making a big deal out of, because it's like, it just doesn't. But I feel like people just kind of, I don't know, they just kind of hop on that bandwagon sometimes just because, well, why not? To be clear, though, and I think I should make this clear, if you want to know, do I think Sony wants to go all digital? Yeah. Yeah, I think if Sony could just stop producing any physical media and make more money doing so, yeah, but that's the whole thing here, is like, you just have to ask yourself, like, well, why don't they? What is stopping Sony from just being done supporting physical games? What's stopping them from going all digital? It's that they'll lose money. They'll lose customers and they'll lose money. And that's just a fact. And the only time you would consider doing that is if you're basically not going to lose any money and basically not lose any customers. And when that happens, yeah, everybody's going to go all digital. But that we're not there yet. We have Mithranyo coming in, dropping a single membership gift. He's keeping the membership train rolling today. He brings us up to 8 members. So Mithranyo, thank you so much for that, buddy. Appreciate the support, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, just a reminder for anybody who wants to support, you're always able to drop a single membership gift. A lot of people do it that way. We get a lot of 5 bombs, 10 bombs, 20 bombs, and the occasional 50, which are amazing, of course. But, hey, man, single memberships matter too. Did Paul actually... Dude, I don't think Paul actually ever got... Wait, holy shit, hold on. Is that the... Wait. Is that the same Paul? Is that the Paul that we were trying to gift on our last stream? Is that the Paul? Holy shit. Because Paul Atreides, I don't know if I'm saying his name correctly. Paul A. He got it. Is that the one? Damn. No, it's not. Oh man, it's yeah. That's why I try not to get too excited. I'm like, wait, I know there are multiple Pauls here. That would have been so funny, dude. That would have been so funny. But yeah, just to clarify what's going on here, if you were worried about this recent report of what was happening at Sony with cutting 250 jobs and backing off of physical media. It has nothing to do with the gaming side of things. And that's going to continue. They're going to continue to support physical. At the very least, Sony will continue to support physical games for the remainder of the PS5 generation. But I mean, I do think it would be crazy for Sony to not also support physical media, physical games, I should say, with the PlayStation 6. That would be nuts. But we are going to move on to the final topic today, which is a bonus topic. And I'm curious how many of you guys have seen this and what you think of it. I have a report here from VGC. Konami's Metal Gear series producer has said it would be the dream for the company to work with Hideo Kojima and other original development staff again. Noriaki Akamura made the comments during a Japanese live stream on Friday with the caveat that he was not assuming Kojima and his former colleagues would necessarily feel the same way. Kojima split from Konami in 2015 following a mysterious falling out following the conclusion of Metal Gear Solid 5. While Kojima still regularly talks about Metal Gear, he no longer has any control over the property. However, it would appear that tensions between the pair may have cooled in the years since. Asked if there was any chance of original staff members working on Metal Gear again during Friday's live stream, Konami producer Akamura replied, quote, "It's not my place to answer on behalf of anyone outside of the company or to guess how they might feel about it. But just speaking for myself personally, I would like nothing better than to work with Mr. Kojima and the rest of the team again. If that could happen, it would be the dream. But people have moved on to new things and new commitments, so that's just our current reality. We can't just take for granted that everyone would work with us again or let ourselves be completely dependent on them." He added, "I just don't think it's right for us to be the ones to make that kind of demand of anyone. So we're working with the expectations that whatever we make is up to us. It's on our shoulders to do a good job." According to Akamura, many staff from the original Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater development team are already working on the upcoming remake. The main external developer working on the game is Virtuos. Akamura himself was a producer for many Metal Gear spin-off games, including Metal Gear Acid 2, Metal Gear Solid the digital graphic novel, Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops, Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops Plus, and Metal Gear Survive. So, in Friday's live stream, the producer went on to claim that, like with the recent Metal Gear Solid Master Collection, Kojima and the original staff will be credited in the upcoming Metal Gear Solid 3 remake in some form. Since we had a lot of questions about this, Mr. Kojima and all of the original development staff are, of course, credited for their original roles, he said. They were already included in the Master Collection, and they will be listed in Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater as well. They're part of these games too, so absolutely, they're in. So I thought this was pretty interesting, and some of the replies that I saw from people were unfortunate because, it's very important to note that this is the producer of Metal Gear Solid Delta, and he's worked on Metal Gear for many, 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 many years. He's worked with Kojima for many years. This is not like some Konami executive saying, we would love to work with Kojima. And I feel bad because you could tell that, like, this is a developer who was there to witness the fallout and had no control over it, mind you, who probably misses working with Kojima, or if not misses it, at the very least, like, clearly is part of the Metal Gear development team and was there on the ground level working with it. And it's sad that, like, some people, I think, were reacting to this like, fuck you, like Konami. It's like, guys, this isn't Konami. Like, he is a producer. Of course, he works for Konami, but it's not like some random executive being like, we miss you, Kojima, please come back. And I just think that that's important to highlight because I totally understand where this producer's coming from. Where, like, of course, man, like, if I had to guess, he probably didn't want to see that happen. He probably didn't want to see Kojima get kicked off of Metal Gear and Silent Hill and, like, fired, essentially. And if it were up to him, it probably never would have happened. But it's also very important to note that the leadership at Konami that was responsible for that, and a lot of people don't know this, and it's understandable why they wouldn't know it, but basically the executives responsible for kicking Kojima out are no longer at Konami. From what I understand, like the new board of Konami is like, it's like new people. So they weren't there for that. And that that should be obvious, because there's a reason why they're now like, yeah, we're going to start putting Kojima's name back on Metal Gear. There's a reason why this producer was allowed to say this. This is why. It's because, the previous leadership of Konami fucked up in the biggest possible way that they could have. And, the only thing that really matters now is, do we think Kojima would ever be willing to work on Metal Gear again to any extent? Would he be willing to communicate with Konami? Would he be willing to, even if it's just to consult, to give them pointers? Do we think Kojima would ever do it again? Or do we think that he'll never acknowledge Konami? Not acknowledge Konami's existence, because he already has, but is he just fully like, I'm out? Metal Gear's done. I'm done. Did Kojima respond? As far as I'm aware, he did not. As far as I'm aware, he did not. And I want to put this out here as well. Based off of the wording from the producer basically said that, like, the end of his quote, he was like, we don't have, I can't talk to Kojima. Like, Kojima isn't here to guide us and tell us what we should or shouldn't do in the remake. So he was saying that, like, it basically falls on us. And to me, that was a subtle hint that it sounds to me like what this producer at Konami and what the team at Konami who's working on Metal Gear Solid Delta, it sounds to me like what they would very much like, if it was a possibility, is to get Kojima's guidance on this and consult with him. Like, this is your game. Like, what do you think we should do? And that's where I'm like, I really wonder, like, dude, if you're Kojima, just think about that. Like, if you're Kojima, yeah, you're on to bigger and better things. You're working on Fizzant, PlayStation 6, Metal Gear Solid spiritual successor. You got Death Stranding 2. You got Overdose. You got made Death Stranding movie. He's got the whole thing going on, man. But if you're Kojima and you get like a phone call or an email or something, and it's like, do you want to consult on this Metal Gear remake? It's your game. Like, you made this. Do you want to have any input? I just feel like, I don't know, man. I feel like if you're Kojima, it would be a tempting situation. You know what I mean? Where it's like, you don't have to be here. You don't have to do anything. You could literally just email us. Just tell us what we should do. If you have any ideas, just tell us. You know what I mean? Text it to me. Text it to the producer or some shit. I wonder if Kojima, because that's the thing that I don't want to lose sight of here, is I know a lot of people are immediately like, fuck Konami. Kojima will never work with them again. Kojima should never work with them again. And I get that. Like, yeah, Kojima got totally fucked over. And Kojima has every right to just never acknowledge Konami's existence for as long as he lives. But Konami is not Metal Gear. And that is something that I think people lose sight of, is that Metal Gear's Kojima, dude. Like, that's his baby, so to speak. You know what I mean? So I feel like it's not as simple as Kojima would just give them the finger and be like, fuck you. I just don't think it would. I don't think it would be that simple. I think it's very much like damn, dude, that they got, it's like they got my baby. So I don't know. I don't know, man. I feel like Kojima's been mysteriously quiet about the Metal Gear Solid 3 remake. And it makes me a little bit sad because there's a whole new generation of gamers who are going to be introduced to his creation, to Metal Gear Solid. And it's just sad to kind of see that, like, I don't know, he seems to just be completely and entirely disconnected from it, but we know that when he was at Konami and when he was making Metal Gear games, when he was making these games, it was a total opposite. He's like, he's in it, dude. Like he's in the whole process. So, I'm not saying that I want to see Kojima get distracted from what, like, I want to see Death Stranding 2. I'm just as excited for Death Stranding 2. I absolutely can't wait to see what Fizzin ends up being. That sounds like it's going to be nuts. So I'm not saying I want to see, like, oh yeah, Kojima, go work with Konami and make Metal Gear Solid 6. Absolutely not. But it's like knowing that Konami is trying to do something with Metal Gear again, and they have new leadership, and there is still staff at Konami that worked on these Metal Gear games. I think sometimes we forget that, that Kojima is the mastermind, but these developers, like, made the games too, It would just be really cool if there could be, like, a kind of, I know they say, like, the bridges are burnt, but a new bridge built. I mean, fuck, man, that's Kojima's whole thing, bridges, right? Connections, where it's like he can consult, he can give he can have some kind of influence and control over what happens with Metal Gear. I think that's ultimately what I'm trying to say here, is that if Konami is willing to basically, like, say, we're sorry, or at the very least just be like, we want to, like, let you tell us what to do, like, I think that's something, I don't know, man. If I were Kojima, if there was, like, no strings attached, like, I don't have to sign anything, I don't have to do nothing, I just get to tell you what to do. Yeah, it would just be cool to it would just be cool to see that. But I don't know, man. Maybe Kojima's truly just done with Metal Gear, where he's like, I did that basically my whole life, Cypherpunk with the super chat says, nah, I can't play a Metal Gear Solid game if it's not Kojima. Well, see, that's the whole thing, man. MGS3 is still Kojima, or Delta is still Kojima. Like, the fact that they're not changing anything major, like, it's still the same game, just basically updated mechanics, and animations. That's still Kojima. When they remake Metal Gear Solid 1, Metal Gear Solid 2, Metal Gear Solid 4, and eventually Metal Gear Solid 5, that will all still be Kojima. But really, it's thinking beyond that, right? Because, like, that's where I think I might agree with you. I don't know. What does Metal Gear Solid 6 look like without Kojima? And it's just Konami. Who even directs that shit? You know what I mean? Like, who? Like, that's where things get really messy. That's where things get really messy, where it's like, yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know if I'd be that excited at all. Like, I think people would kind of hate that. Here, if Konami wants to make good money off of Metal Gear as it is right now, like, Konami maybe is like, we can't make Metal Gear Solid 6. We can't do that. That'll be disastrous. But we want to keep making money. Remake all the games. Make Metal Gear Online. Remake Metal Gear Online 1 or 2, or combine them. Combine Metal Gear Online 1 and 2, make it a live service, and just sustain it. And there you go. You'll get microtransactions. You'll have the loyal Metal Gear player base because they know it's a remake of this online component that was made by Kojima, and you can keep updating it. There you go. Konami, hire me. I'll give you I gave you that one for free, Konami. I gave you that one for free. And I'll happily give that one for you. Give that one to you for free because I want to see that shit happen. I'm telling you, if Konami's fucking smart, you're not going to get Kojima back. I think that's obvious. Like, you're not going to get Kojima back. You're probably never going to be able to make Metal Gear Solid 6. So you should just remake the Metal Gear Online components, put them all together, and then sell it as a live service that you'll sustain for like 10 years. Uh-oh. Hold on. Can you guys hear me? My audio software seems to have completely glitched out. I need some feedback right now. Do I sound different? Did anything change? Sounds the same? Okay, I guess I'll just leave it alone then. Yeah, if the audio changes abruptly, just know that it glitched out and there's really nothing I can do about it. So but guys, I think this is where we are going to bring this stream today to an end. I didn't want to extend it for too long just because, again, we didn't have that many topics and there's really not a whole lot going on right now. But I still wanted to be able to report some of the stuff to you guys and have a bit of conversation with you guys. We do have a super chat from Josh Z, and he says here, some creatives divorce themselves entirely from stories when they finish it. Could just be his personal process and not bad blood. Yeah, that's the only thing that's strange to me, Josh, because I totally get what you're saying, and I could absolutely see Kojima being at a point where, like, Metal Gear's done, man. Like, I feel like it's over, like I've moved on and I'm doing different things now. And I just kind of really want, that part of my life is over, so to speak. I could totally get that. The only thing that confuses me about it is he still talks about Metal Gear frequently on social media. You know what I mean? Like he clearly still cares very much about it. And that's why I find it so strange that he has not said a word. He has not acknowledged the existence of Metal Gear Solid 3 Remake. And I guess maybe it's a legal thing where it's like he would like to, but he's afraid if he does, people are going to think he's involved. People are going to think he approves of it. If he says something if he says something critical, he could devastate the sales of that game because then suddenly the conversation. So I guess the more I think about it, the more it's like, he probably definitely wants to say something, but he knows he can't because it could cause, like, if you think about it, Kojima could self-destruct that game with a single tweet. He could, he could also sell millions of copies of that game with a single tweet. So he has like this immense power, I think, specifically with Metal Gear Solid 3 Delta, that it could be murky water, potential legal problems as well. But it would just be cool. It'd be cool if like Kojima announced, like, I'm happy to announce that, I'm going to consult on the remainder of Metal Gear Solid 3 Delta and future remakes or some shit. Like, I think that'd be awesome. Whereas, like, you're not working for Konami, like, you're not an employee there, like you're being given control to an extent on how your games are going to be remade. That'd be pretty sick. But I totally get what you're saying, Josh. It could very well be that too. He's just, maybe when he talks about Metal Gear at this point, he's just reminiscing, you know what I mean? Just memories of development and stuff like that. Not necessarily an interest in going back and doing it again or being part of it anymore. Um, so yeah, I guess we'll see, man. I guess we'll see. Time will tell, as it always does. But guys, that is going to do it for today's stream. It's gonna be a shorter one, but excuse me. I hope you did enjoy it. Before I head out, so there's not going to be a members launch today. We'll be doing a members stream where we're going to stream some Demon Souls sometime this week. So no members launch today. We will be doing another one though later this week, another members lounge. So be on the lookout for that. But yeah, today I just wanted to keep it short, and I hope you did enjoy it. I appreciate you guys tuning in. To everybody who watched live, thank you so much. I want to give a big shout out to everybody who dropped membership gifts or became a member, and everybody who dropped super chats. Really appreciate that direct support. Without it, simply couldn't do what I do here. So thank you guys so much. Also want to give a shout out to Devil Shooter. He does the timestamps for the streams. If you see him in the comments, make sure you give him some thanks. I know he really appreciates it. And yeah, that does it. So guys, enjoy the rest of your day, and I will catch you in the next proper stream. So until then, take care, everyone.